Hey everybody, Daniela Warner here with Addo Aesthetics, and I'm so excited to have Lorraine with us today. Lorraine is a master microblader, and I actually first learned about microblading in the Estheticians Connect Facebook group. One of the members had posted a video, and I was fascinated. And so I've brought Lorraine with us here today to talk and share a little bit more about what microblading is. So Lorraine, thank you so much for being here. Can you take a moment and tell us a little bit about your background and just explain a little bit more what microblading is?
Okay. Um, my name is Lorraine Cormier. I became an esthetician 11 years ago. I went back to school. I used to work with in the medical aesthetics with a doctor. But before that, I worked with cancer specialists.
Mm.
So we had all kinds of patients coming in, and we would see the process of what the treatments for cancer would do. I went back to take my aesthetics course when I was 44. And when I started, right away, I kind of picked up on the eyebrows. I saw how important an eyebrow was, and we were over tweezing and removing.
Hmm.
So I would teach women, ladies, young girls, how to fill it in and say, you can't touch that. We call it joining the dots together. Leave those there. We're going to do the process of regrowing your eyebrow, but a lot of them don't grow back. So the eyelash extensions became a big thing in most of the salons. And one day I was doing eyelash extensions, and I came out and I said, I wonder if they do eyebrow extensions. So we kind of chuckled and we went looking online, and sure enough, they did eyebrow extensions. So I hopped on a plane and went down to Toronto to find out what the course was and everything. So I became a distributor and an educator for eyelash extensions and eyebrow extensions
Oh,
at the
wow.
same time. So because I've been doing eyebrows and I specialize for the last 10 years, I did take the course, Anastasia's course. She's the one that does Oprah's eyebrows.
Oh, wow.
Um, I have a lot of clients that come to see me. They have their estheticians, but they come and see me to do eyebrows, to shape their eyebrows. If they're flying in from different provinces or different places, they call and they book ahead for me to do their eyebrows. So it kind of became my specialty. I love aesthetics, but the eyebrows are so just they're right there in your face, right? So then I had the lady that had hired me to become her educator and distributor for eyebrow extensions and the lash extensions. She called me and asked me if I was interested in the microblading. And I said, I've never heard of it. She sent me pictures. I went online, and the following week I was on the plane heading down to Toronto
Oh,
to
wow.
take my course in microblading. I came back. I started right away. I did a lot of ladies for free. I just posted who wants free eyebrows. The ladies started coming in. I spent a lot of time working on different people. They knew that I was new at it, and they knew that it was, it's a risk. They're putting their hands in with me. But they also knew me well enough that I wouldn't venture to a place where that I would do something I wasn't supposed to. So it was a slow process. Um, but I started watching a lot of videos on TV, on the YouTube, and there was a few components that were missing.
Hmm.
So I typed online and I said, who's the best in microblading? And I found a couple of names, and I booked a trip to Spain. And I went and I trained in Spain for a couple of days.
Wow.
And then I visited for a few days.
Of course, you have to.
I have to, yeah. And I am a trainer out here. I have some big classes coming up. But I know that I always tell clients, I said, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I said, nobody's right and nobody's wrong. It's what we see as beautiful. And I said, clients will come to see me, and some will love my work and some won't. But it's not because I don't do good work. It's because they have a certain look of what they want as beautiful, and they'll find an esthetician that works with them.
Hmm.
So when I teach estheticians, I teach them my way.
Hmm.
And I said, when I teach you, I said, I'm giving you all of the information that I have. I teach you what I know. What you do with it and become your beautiful is what you do and you offer to your clients. Am I worried about the girl next door, me teaching her to do microblading and that she's going to take my clientele? Not at all, because she attracts who she is and I attract who I am. And so I have no problem teaching everybody because
I
people,
love that.
and that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I always train when I'm talking. I say this industry is growing so much. There's more than enough room for all of us, you know, and everybody has different personality types, exactly like what you're saying. So I love that. I really believe in that.
Yeah, I think sometimes people come to see me. They come and see me for my work, but I have a certain personality,
Hmm.
and they're attracted to that personality.
And we
Uh,
all do.
exactly,
Yeah.
and so if someone comes in that has a different lifestyle than me, they're going to come in. It's like, okay, no, this is not. I want to be able to talk about certain things, and Lorraine is not there. Lorraine's in an older world. But then they'll go and they'll find who they're attracted to, and that way they can work together. So when clients come in and say, "Look what someone did to my eyebrows," you could sit there and say, "Oh wow, that's so wrong." But I tell the clients, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. To her, it was beautiful.
So what is, and that's a great way to kind of, you know,
Warm
spread that.
something up.
Yeah, yeah. But can you explain a little bit about what is the difference between, if there is any, between microblading and micropigmentation, semi-permanent makeup? You know, we hear a lot about that. What is the difference in the technique and the appearance and what you're seeing?
Semi-permanent, semi-permanent makeup, eyebrow tattooing. It's more of a solid line, and it's a
Hmm.
little deeper. And the way that it's created, it's a small needle, and it vibrates so fast into the skin, and it forms the color. Whether it's a certain color or whether is even lined, because they can still do the strokes with the tattooing,
Hmm.
but it's a little deeper. And whereas microblading it's a small tool and it's a small handheld tool, and I think you have a little more control on making the hair.
Hmm.
You can actually, when you practice enough, you can actually have your wrist make that curve and follow the hair. I'm sure that there's going to be some tattoo artists that will get it
Hmm.
because they're good tattoo artists and their beauty is what they see. But where microblading came in, it was the lines could be a lot smaller. They could be a lot more precise, and I think the color didn't run as much because it wasn't as deep.
Hmm.
What happens with color when you're doing tattooing or even microblading, if you're going too deep, when it goes into the skin, the color goes to the bottom, and if it's too deep, it disperses, and then
Oh,
it gives kind of a shadow, and then it might make the line look a little wider. When you're doing it and you're doing the microblading, if you're doing it properly, you're not going as deep, so you can keep the line more precise, and there's less chance of the color spreading underneath the skin.
I see.
Um, and I think when people were doing the tattooing, they were doing a solid line.
Hmm.
Microblading gives you a little more room for error. And that's not a thing you want to say about doing someone's eyebrows. But honestly, if you came in and said, and I did microblading, and you said, Lorraine, my eyebrows are a little crooked. If you're doing a tattoo, you have to add to the full solid line. If you're doing microblading, you just have to add a couple hairs.
So would you say that it's a more natural look than the
Very,
tattoo? Okay.
very much, very much. Like my eyebrows are microbladed.
Hmm.
And when people look at my eyebrows, they have to get right up to sit there and check to see where the blade has left the lines, right? Whereas if you're getting a tattoo, like I said, they're evolving. They're starting to do the lines and that, but you can really tell when someone's gotten that tattoo.
Hmm.
And not that all tattoo artists, some of them have an eye for an eyebrow, but some of them don't. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they'll make a shape, but I think with the microblading, I'm hoping that most of them, or all of them, have that eye for an eyebrow and they know what they're looking
So
for.
it's really, if you're an esthetician that's wanting to get involved in microblading or get trained in it, you should be really detail oriented. Are there any other, is there a type of esthetician or something that someone's been trained in beforehand, like perhaps dermaplaning or something like that would make them a
No,
better? No?
no, I think they have to have an eye. Like I've trained people and they say, I already know how to do eyebrows. And I'll tell you a case. I trained this lady, and I'm very I'm training my way.
Mm-hmm.
What you do once you leave, but I'm training my way because I really believe in that nice flow of an eyebrow. Um, but you have to be able to tell your client that this is what's going to look good on you.
Mm-hmm.
If your client says, this is what I want, and it goes against your gut instinct,
Mm-hmm.
then after that, you are creating an eyebrow that is your advertisement.
Right.
Okay. So if that client likes it, and I told the lady, I said, do you like the eyebrow that you created? Well, she liked it, but I said, but do you like it? Well, she liked it, but I said, but that woman liked it. But I said, she's telling 10 women, and I said, that might not like her eyebrow. And I said, those are 10 women. I said, they're thinking that this is the work that you do. And I said, you really have to be a strong enough character, and you and the client have to meet halfway. This is what I like, and I know this is what you want. And you have to be strong enough to know that this is what's going to look good on the client, and to be able to convince the client that you're doing the best for her. And if you don't have that in you, then you will never have a consistent eyebrow. You will have this one saying, well, I want it this way, and this one I want it that way. And then you've got all of these eyebrows walking around. Whereas if you're consistent, you will attract your clientele that wants this consistency.
So, and yeah, I definitely agree with that. You mentioned that you went to Spain for your training.
Yes.
So this is microblading is something that originated in Spain or in...
No, it originated in China, and
Mm-hmm.
I went looking online for the whole story. I had heard someone say that it originated there a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
But microblading became well known in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's where they started to practice a little more. The trainer that trained me, he's been doing it for 6 years, and he said when he was a distributor, and there was a box of blades from China put in his stuff, and so he called and said, what is this? He went looking online, he sat down and he started working with it and said, oh, I think I can make a business out of this.
Oh.
And he made a business out of it.
Oh, good for him.
6 years later. And it presented itself, right? So, but there were other people doing it before him. So he's been doing it for 6 years. But when I went looking online, they said it came up more in like after 2000 that it started to work its way. We're just a little slower on this side. Here's what I need to grasp at it, right? And some people do it, and some people do it very, very well, and some people are still learning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
But that's why we have trainers, right? Like you.
That's right. So some people are still learning. And when I train people, when I was in Spain, I had a girl from Ontario, and she said, okay, this is a brow that I'm working with. So she takes a picture, she sends it to me, I draw on a paper the picture that she sent me. This is what your eyebrow looks like, and this is what you need to do with it. I take a picture of it, and then I send both pictures, and then she can visualize what it is that we're going for.
Oh, wow.
So it's
That's a great support.
Well, it is because, and I can do it, and I have my phone with me, so I can do it sitting at home, and they'll sit there, and sometimes they'll send some work to me, and it's like, oh, that's different. But then I'll take a picture again of what they did, and I'll say, because the second appointment for the client is more important than the first.
So there's multiple appointments.
Okay. So you do the base, and then when they come in for the second one, then we call it the refining.
Okay.
Because they could lose some of the color, and you might have missed putting a few hairs in, and sometimes it seems like it gets a little crowded when you're working, so you have to back off and say the refining is in the second appointment. And as long as the client knows that the refining is there, because they'll say, there's some missing, don't worry about it. We left you a base, and you're coming back, and we will refine it. So when the girl sent me the picture, I took a picture of it, I drew it, and then I said, now when she comes back for her refining, this is where I want you to add.
And what's the time frame between the initial appointment and the refining appointment?
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. Okay.
Yes. So when the client initially comes in, she comes in for her consult, and then you talk, and you just can draw a fast picture of what it is that you would do.
Mm-hmm.
I usually get my client to lay down, and we talk for a little bit, and I say, can I show you what I would do just with the pencil?
Mm-hmm.
So I just draw in an eyebrow, and I usually only draw one in so that they can see what they have and what we're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I draw it in, and then we talk about it and whether she wants a little thicker, a little thinner, and then we meet halfway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, would you like me to draw the second one before you leave? So I draw the second one, and then they leave. Then when they come for their appointment, just doing the measuring can take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Just the measuring, because you are putting something on someone's face, very, very precise.
Mm-hmm.
Double, triple, quadruple checking. They lay down, they sit up, you talk, and then once you've got what you want, then the process itself can take maybe half an hour.
Okay. And what's the price range that this service is being offered? What were they pricing it in Europe compared to what they're pricing it in Canada and in the States?
In Europe, when I was in Spain, she was charging about $300.
And that includes both treatments?
Yes. Okay, and I've gone on different sites and listened, and people talk about it, and some of the prices are higher. Here, what I charge, my rates are between $350 to $600,
mm-hmm.
and that's for both appointments. But I'm going to be very honest, I haven't done a $300 yet.
Mm-hmm.
I usually start at $400 or $450, because even though they might have a half decent brow, and they might just want the beginning and the end, you still have to shape it so that the front and the end, so that they meet and they match. And so even if they have a full brow, you still have to pull color through, mm-hmm. so that you have that nice flow, right? You can't just do the front and the end, because it seems like you can see the skin so I just pull it straight through so that you can get that nice flow. And sometimes there's tweaking on the shape. Anybody that has no brow at all, you head more for the $600.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes both appointments. And what I do is, because the second appointment is so important, I make them pay up the whole thing up front.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do, you do it half decent, and then when the client's sitting down and say, oh, I should have put something there, I should have put something there, and then the client says, oh, well, I don't have to go back, I'm fine. And then anybody else sees it, it's like, oh, there should be something there. So
mm-hmm.
if they've given you their money, they're coming back for their second appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. It works for me that way.
And what are the consumable costs on this? Is it the cost of the pigment? I imagine the blades are obviously single use.
Very much. I would say for the two treatments, you're looking at maybe $20.
So basically what you're charging for is your time and your expertise.
Very much so.
Okay.
Very much. The blades can, they vary different prices depending on where you're purchasing your blades. But they're disposable blades. You don't save the blade for the second time that they come. They're disposable. And I've actually seen sometimes when I've had two blades, depending mm-hmm. on their eyebrow and how it's shaped, they might have some thicker hairs and some thinner, and depending on what you're trying to produce, you'll have two blades going. Mm-hmm. Because I would rather have the two blades and have it looking fantastic than trying to save and just use one blade.
Right.
I have seen myself use two different blades, have them sitting there, and sometimes two different colors. But the majority, it's around $20 for both appointments.
So it can be a really profitable thing for an esthetician to invest in, and also because it's a fairly new service, that's going to put them as kind of creating a little niche for themselves.
Very much so. Very much. I do aesthetics, and I have 3 ladies that work with me. Mm-hmm. And, we have a few of the machines, but when I started doing the microblading, it's not that we don't do manicures and pedicures and all that, but we really pulled away from it.
Hmm.
Because if the girls aren't busy, but they're booking me appointments and they're making arrangements, and I'm doing a microblading service, you weigh the pros and the cons, right? And I told the girls, I said, if you have manicures and pedicures and things, but I said, but we've kind of gone into the medical side. We've gone into the more, I don't know if you want to call it the more financial side. We've gone that route instead of making, there's 400 estheticians around here.
Hmm.
So if I'm charging $35 or $40 for a manicure, and someone is doing it at home and they have no overhead and they're charging $20. And that's reality. And I remember my dad saying, do you have to go and spend all of that money for your training? And I said, you know what, Dad? I said, there's so many of us. I said that if I don't find a niche to fall into, then it's a struggle and it's a battle because you're constantly competing with the prices, right? So the people that get in microblading, if they're good and they can really, really perfect it, there's a niche out there for them.
I love that. And so I have an online course that's called the Thriving Estheticians Masterclass. And in there, the first couple of weeks are spent on discovering your skills and strengths and your ideal client so you can create a little niche for yourself. Because I think it's so important to have something. You can be good at a lot of things, but if you carve out one particular thing that you're the best at, you just are going to position yourself in a whole nother level that you can get PR, you can get, just known for that particular thing, which I think is exactly what you have done for yourself.
Very much.
Yeah.
The girls here, when people call and they call me the eyebrow queen. Now, I don't call myself the eyebrow queen. And every time I would hear them saying, I said, you need to stop doing that. I said, I'm good at them, but I said, but to me, there was something wrong about being called the eyebrow queen. And then I have this friend that's in Ontario, and she has a marketing company, and she said, you need to grab that.
Yeah, I thought it was really catchy when I saw it in the Facebook group.
Yeah, she said, you might not be out there saying you're the eyebrow queen, but she said, but if your clients are calling you that, she said, if you don't take that title, she said, someone else is taking it. And she said, and it's a marketing tool. So I had my first sign designed this week. It's going to be coming out, and it's going out somewhere out there, and it's got my picture with the eyebrow queen, and that it was like, oh, I can't believe I just did that. But it's a marketing tool, right?
It is.
And I, if there's 400 of us, I have to stick out somewhere. So it's like, okay, I leave it in your hands, and when we say put yourself in our hands, I leave it in your hands and let it go.
So you're doing training across the United States and Canada, and I know that you have a couple trainings coming up. I think in February there's one in St. Louis.
Yes.
But if there's estheticians that are interested in attending one of your trainings or learning more about it, what's the best way that they can find that out?
The best place would be to go on our Facebook page, and it's called In Our Hands.
Okay.
And they can send private messages, and the girls are updating it as we go. Carolyn is the one that she takes charge of all of that. Natalie runs my office, and Carolyn runs this. So I just come down and say, what am I doing today? But if they go and look on In Our Hands, Carolyn is constantly there when she's not with clients, and she keeps things updated. And then she, gets back in touch with them usually before the day is over, and she kind of keeps everything going there. We do have a website that's inourhands.ca, and it has microblading on it, and there's a video. But if you go and look on In Our Hands Facebook page, there's videos, there's work. A lot of the work that we do, and we're very upfront. We put the work on that's done right away. We don't wait until it's totally refined.
Just to be, yeah, that's cool.
To be there, okay? And say she'll be coming in for her touch-up. Because if I say that I'm the best and all that, no, I'm not. I do the best that I can, okay? So this is our initial, and then people can look at it, and you might look at it and say, oh, I would have put a hair there, and I would have put a hair there. But when you start working with the skin, then it's like, okay, you can only traumatize it so much. Then you have to back off. Because I could say, oh, well, I want another one there, but you don't know how her skin is going to react. If it's going to expand or if it's going to shrink. So I tell the girl, I said, walk away. Tell your client she's coming back for the refining. So when we do ours, the very first picture, lots of them are put right on. They haven't been refined. They're coming back so that girls know it's like, okay, she might be training it, but this is the process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very, very honest about the process, right?
I love that. I love that transparency, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
So I'll be sure to include links to all of that in the blog post. But I thank you so much for your time. I think this has just been phenomenal for my community and for anyone that's really interested in learning about microblading. I know now I'm like, oh, I need to go to Canada and get my eyebrows done.
I need to check that out. Well, I thank you very much for taking your time and doing this. And like I said, to me, it's just one-on-one, and this works for me. Not sure who's going to see it, but the one-on-one works.